Hey there, people of the interwebs. My name is Brandon Noel. If this is your first video with me, basically I do these goofy artist videos usually 2 times a week. This month I'm having internet trouble, so we'll see what that's like. But I have a new comic book Kickstarter coming out in May called Flatfoot MdGee, and basically I'm just going to draw a front facial shot of Flatfoot MdGee, and we're going to paint it, have a little fun. So his head's kind of a little bit more oval shape. I like to make his hair a little irregular, off center. He is a duck detective in the great tradition of cartoon ducks. His jaw is a little bit more square. I give him more of that 1950s kind of detective. The kind of lip curl is more of kind of inspired by Jimmy Stewart from Vertigo. Put a cigar in his mouth. There's actually a law in the states that you cannot use a cartoon character to advertise cigarette smoking. I think it's a good law. It's meant for to prevent basically Joe the Camel from ever coming back and advertising to children. So I'm a little worried about the legality of him smoking, but you can't have a 1950s detective without smoking and booze. Like, it's not going to happen. It's almost it's almost sacrilegious. This is kind of just my rough outline. And normally I would ink it. I was thinking about not doing that. I was thinking about painting right on the pencils. So I get more of the paint to run. So we'll see how this is going to work out. I've never done this before, but you know, hey, we'll see what we get. I like playing around sometimes. I'm a big fan of watercolor, and I paint pretty much all my books in watercolor. I got into watercolor because it was the quickest way to throw down color on a page, and it was also one of the cheapest. I am not what you would say is independently wealthy. That is not me. So it's alright. With watercolor, you can't really control the... I mean, you can. Normally, I would ink it to control more of the color. Because if you ink before you cut watercolor, that's a little thicker than I would have liked. It gives you the ability to kind of keep your paint in check. They stick to their territory a little more. Is that right? Problem with watercolor, with the reds, I've never found a red, like a deep crimson red in watercolor that I like. They always come out a shade lighter. I'm still looking for that kind of crimson red in watercolor. The coat is that cadmium bright yellow. Kind of a nod to Dick Tracy, but I draw the coat like Columbo. It hangs off of him. It drapes off of him. It doesn't make him look more professional. It makes him look less professional because of how big the coat is compared to him. So even though the color is an homage to Dick Tracy, the coat itself is an homage to Columbo, whose coat ranged from more that brown, yeah, it was more that brown coat, the trench coat color like you'd see on Supernatural. Going with a slightly different shade of, that's more of an orange, just to give some line weight. But yeah, the Flatfoot MdGee is heavily influenced by more like Dashiell Hammett, more noir detective kind of characters. I fell in love with a radio detective named Richard Diamond, and he's what I would call soft-boiled noir, not hard-boiled. And what I mean by that is, like, he makes jokes. He's a wisecracker. Like Philip Marlowe in the radio show makes a couple of more jokes, but in the actual books, like, Philip Marlowe's more of an asshole and less of a just not a nice guy. I'm gonna say it. But about the cigarettes, and going back to the smoking, I understand why you don't want kids thinking cigarette is smoking, because it's not. It's a poor life decision, and you know, I'm not a fan of smoking by any stretch of the imagination. I hate the smell of it. Here in California, we have some pretty strict smoking laws, and I am one of the first people to inform somebody who's smoking leaning up against the building that, yeah, you have to be 50 feet from a doorway here in California. That's fire code. So I'm not a fan of smoking, mostly because of the smell. The smell is just, oh, it smells of death. Oh, already getting a little drip there. Don't want that just yet. And I, as a kid, grew up in an era where, like, Bugs Bunny, Groucho Marx, like, all everyone I saw on television smoked. The Flintstones smoked. Don't believe me? Go to YouTube and type in, like, Fred Flintstone's cigarette ad. He was a spokesman for a while for cigarettes. And I never smoked. Not once in my life have I ever smoked, except for hookah. That one time in high school I gave into peer pressure. But I never smoked cigarettes. I never did any of that kind of stuff. So I can safely say I don't believe a cartoon character or even a comic book character smoking will cause children to smoke. I'm just throwing a little background color. Alright, this is a fun thing I've done a couple of times now. Or not a couple of times, I've only done this once. I'll throw a little color. You know, I don't like... Let's throw a little bit more orange up in there. Orange and blue make purple. Thick. Load that on there. Alright. So this has been my Flatfoot MdGee kind of sketch. Actually, I think while that's still up there, I'm going to take a pencil, throw in a little bit more. There you go. Take my little spray bottle and just kind of hit the whole thing. Most of that top, because I want those colors to run. The green didn't run as well as I would have liked, but now while that is drying, I'm going to, I don't have one down there. I'm going to take a painter's palette, tape it. Oh, no one saw that. I don't think anyone did. I think I was off camera. So I'm going to take a painter's palette, and I'm going to tape this to the painter's palette. Oops. Tape that to the painter's palette and let that dry, and tomorrow I will have more of a watercolor wash with Flatfoot MdGee, but I'm going to add couple more fresh colors. Mostly because I'm not too fond of how much that, there we go. There you go. So, like I said, I've never done that before. I think it looks kind of neat. I don't know if I like the blue. It was a choice I made, and art is all about choices. You have to live with them. That's just it. And so there you go. I think it's kind of neat. With watercolor, you just have to let it go. You have to let it be its own thing. And the one thing that bothers me about doing this to let it dry, to drip, is when you pull that tape. Sometimes it'll rip, or you'll have lines, or whatever. But I don't know any other way to straighten those back out once they work for the water. So, alright, there you go. Hope you enjoyed that.